I know I've never told this story on the podcast, and I think it's pretty fun. In 2008 was, I know I've talked about 2008 and in a podcast I've done, with Spectre Side, but I had just, oh man, maybe this was even 2009. I bet it was 2009. I've said 2008, but I bet it was 2009. Sometimes these dates get a little sketchy. I was drinking heavily. I'm going to go ahead and say it was 2009. Because I had been working at Spectre Side full-time for about a year. And during that first year, 2008, I drove a 1982 Buick LeSabre. Because I had wrecked my Saturn, and I was driving this LeSabre. And I had been dating a girl all throughout the time that I was driving the LeSabre. Now, me and her had a wild kind of relationship, and we were both heavy drinkers, and we would fight a lot. And she would yell at me. Mainly she would yell at me, but I would yell at her a little bit. Mainly she would yell at me, but we had a great time. It was very fun. I really enjoyed dating her, but we had a wild kind of relationship. And then my friend, who was my good drinking buddy, who wrecked with me in the Saturn, was also dating, on and off, dating her friend. And they were wilder than we were. So it made for crazy times. So we had broken up. And I got a new car. I got a 2008 Dodge Avenger. I bought a rental car because at the time I had no credit and no one would give me a loan. No matter what I did, no one would give me a loan. So I finally I got my mom to co-sign with me, and I bought a 2008 Dodge Avenger from Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And I love that car. It was black. I mean, it was a 4-cylinder, but it looked like a Charger. It looked like a fast car. And I loved it. And I remember I was driving around with my friend John Brennan. We were hanging out, and it was storming really bad in Charleston. Storming really bad. And I remember, I don't know, for some reason we rolled down the window or whatever, and I remember having a towel and just wiping down the water that would get in the car, just keeping it pristine. I washed it all the time. And a flood was coming. I mean, Charleston used to flood a lot, and this was a particularly bad flood. Like, it rained, and water was piling up everywhere. I started watching people's cars get flooded as they were parked on the side of the street, and I just thought, wow, that's crazy. But I was just driving around, hanging out with John. I don't know exactly what we did, but we were hanging out with a lot of improv people. It's possible that I went to a show that night, Theater 99, American Theater, something like that. And we drank. We drank pretty heavy that night, and I was on my way out of downtown. I was going to go on home. And then I started either texting or calling the girl that I used to date. And we were talking, and she wanted to get together with me. And honestly, I wanted to get together with her. So I said, you know what? I'm going to abandon. I was already drinking and driving. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and abandon what I was doing. And I'm going to turn around, and I'm going to drive to meet this girl. And I turned down a side street, and then I turned down another side street, and it was dark. And when I turned down that second side street, the road just dipped, and I basically just drove into a pond. And my car was completely flooded. It wouldn't crank. I couldn't get it out of there. There was water on the floorboard. My feet got wet. I had to get out in this pond. And I was just like, oh, man. And I was drunk. And I called a tow truck company. And, actually, I think my phone was dead. So I went walking, and I found someone I knew. And I asked them, could I borrow their phone? And I called a tow truck company. And the tow truck company said, we'll come and get it, but if you're still in that pond, basically, they were like, we can't tow you unless you're out of that. So I had a little bit of money because I was working full-time. So I went into a restaurant called Norm's Pizza. And I went into Norm's, and I basically made an announcement to the restaurant. I said, now, the flood was everywhere. Everybody was well aware that this flood was happening. And it was a crazy night. And I just said, hey, if anybody will help me come push my car out of this pond, I'll buy your drinks, and I'll buy some pitchers of beer, and we'll sit here and get drunk. So a group of people got up. Charleston was the best. I don't know if Charleston's like that today, but back then it was great. So they agreed. They came and they helped me push this car out of the water. And we pushed it out of there. I called the tow truck company. The tow truck came, towed the car, and then I went back down to Norm's Pizza. I bought some pitchers of beer, and we just drank. And we drank until the place closed. There was no Uber. No Lyft back then. And the taxis were busy to death. I didn't even think about that, though. I was just like, I'm drinking downtown. I live on James Island, which was a good 15-minute ride. I'm just drinking, not even thinking about how am I going to get home. And then at 2, they kicked us out, and I'm out on the street, and I'm like, oh, no, I don't have a ride home. And then someone yells. I hear someone, because so many cars are flooded. I hear this guy go, he says, I'm going to James Island if anybody needs a ride. And I was like, oh, that's me. So I get in this guy's car, and as we're driving through downtown to the James Island connector going out of downtown, you just see cars everywhere just flooded. I mean, it looks like the apocalypse has happened. And we drive, and then I tell the guy where I live, and then I fall asleep in the car. That's how drunk I am. And he wakes me up, and he said, is this where you live? And I was like, yeah. And I got out and went inside. And so the days go on, and I find that my car is going to need it. Part of me, I really kind of hated the Spectracide job. There was a part of me that really liked it because I felt like I had a professional job. And there's another part of me that was like, I wish they would tell me that the car was totaled so I could just get rid of the car. And then if I got rid of the car, I could quit the job. And so they called me and they said, your car's pretty bad, but we're going to be able to fix it. So I was disappointed. But my insurance paid for me a rental car, and I got a really nice truck, and I was driving her around. And I remember I was trying to date this other girl at the time, and I really wanted her to go on a date with me while I had that truck. That never worked out.